Welcome to this presentation on a concept that we call network validity. The presentation was created by me, Froehlich, and Mark Sarazin. So let's get started. Social network methods have been applied to an ever-increasing range of empirical phenomena. They have been applied to study relational phenomena between people, ranging from ephemeral interactions to fundamental similarities. At the heart of this spread in network research lies the idea that network methods can be appropriately applied to all of those different settings, samples, and phenomena. Surprisingly, few scholars explain how what they study can be considered a network and how it is similar or different from other networks that have been studied. Even network analysts, which seek to cordon off the definition of a network from its looser definitions in everyday language, often employ extraordinarily wide definitions of networks. Such wide definitions imply that almost any collection of nodes and ties could be a network, making it unclear what doesn't count as a network. While many issues pertaining to network data collection have been discussed, such as ethical considerations, threats to validity arising through interviewer effects, and practical considerations to optimize data collection, scholars have not yet considered validity threats arising from researchers' definition of what a network is, how it is represented by collected data, and how both influence the inferences made from it. For this presentation, we define network validity, the core concept of the presentation, as the degree to which the network we are studying is actually the network we claim to discuss. Let me repeat this one more time because this is kind of important. Network validity is the degree to which the network we are studying is actually the network we claim to discuss. So let's break this down and let's start with the big word here, validity. In general, validity refers to the quality of the elements of a research study and the study as a whole. Different methods entail different validity criteria, as you are well aware, begging the questions of which criteria to include in the notion of network validity. A small note on the side, the focus of this presentation is on unimodal, qualitative and quantitative survey data, but much of our discussion may be applicable to other forms of network research as well. There are three larger dimensions to network validity that we discuss. First, the specification of a network. Second, the data representing the network. And third, the inferences made from the network study. Let's start with point 1, the specification of a network. Our interest in network research usually is not directed at the nodes or ties directly. The definition that a network is a set of nodes and ties is a shorthand definition because it loses perspective of the network as such. Achieving network validity means assessing whether the object in the study can accurately be called a network. That is, whether there is something that exists beyond the nodes and ties in the study that fits with the theoretical ideas of what a network actually is. Although few scholars give explicit definitions of what a network is, they generally agree that networks should be seen to be emergent from actors and their social relationships. They do form a new entity. The decision of whether an emergent network exists can also vary according to several factors, including time. We may consider the friendship relations between a class of first graders as a network, but can admit that such a network does not yet exist before the students have gone to school. To fit with network theorizing, actors should be dependent in some way on each other through the ties that link them, and/or ties should be dependent on each other through the actors that they involve. So to achieve network validity, a study should clearly identify what kind of network it is actually studying. What kind of other networks of students in a school may be similar to it? Is it comparable to networks of students in primary schools or networks in schools in the same country, in the same region, etc.? If a study bridges between several theoretical approaches, such as relationalism and formalism as two exemplary approaches to be found in social network literature, then the potential contradictions between approaches and how these are addressed should be specified. Second, we discussed data to represent networks. Once a network has been properly defined, as defined in the previous section, researchers must employ data collection strategies that are consistent with their conceptualization of their network. And there's a lot to unpack here. Specifically, we focus on having multiple perspectives, employing multiple and matching sampling strategies, and making valid conversions of qualitative data. Let's start with having multiple perspectives. Network validity requires that all relevant perspectives have been considered when specifying a network and collecting data about it. In the mixed methods community, we have this beautiful term, inside-out validity. Inside-out validity means reconciling the researcher's outsider perspective with the study participants' insider views. It refers, for example, to the boundary of the network to be specified. We do agree with Lahmann et al. 1983 that boundary specification is an essential step in any network study. The choice as well as the rationale behind it needs to be laid out transparently. Also, researchers should take additional measures to confirm that bias against research objectives is indeed being minimized through the approach, not maybe nominalist or realist or mixed, whatever they have chosen. This includes reconciling realist and nominalist views within the study. That was also argued by Smith, 2013. Let's now turn to the multiple sampling strategies in place in a network study. For Onwig-Bouzy and Johnson, sample integration validity refers to how quantitative and qualitative samples have been chosen and integrated so as to produce higher quality findings and inferences drawing on both samples. This is not only relevant in network studies because they often combine other sources of data, or because networks are cases that are sampled from populations of networks. It is also specifically relevant with regards to network validity because networks rely on a triple sampling process that includes sampling of egos, that's actors sending ties, alters, that's actors that receive ties and that may or may not have participated in the study, and types of ties. For instance, many quantitatively driven studies focus on investigating rather small sets of ties, as this is often a limitation of the analytical approach. However, research has established that multiplexity, the availability of many types of ties, is a common feature of social networks. A similar problem exists on the level of nodes, where there is the weak ties that may not be sampled after all, despite their established relevance. In sum, the complex and multiplex nature of social network analysis needs to be reduced before analysis. This needs to be discussed in light of network validity. Finally, let's turn to issues of conversion. In all research endeavors, complexity of reality is converted for analysis. This process of conversion is critical and, given the high complexity of social network research, a threat to network validity. Network researchers need to be mindful about what is being stripped away from the data when turning participants' responses into quantitative, maybe even binary tie data to achieve conversion validity. That again is a term used in mixed methods research, most notably Onwig-Bouzy and Johnson, 2006. Third, let's have a look at the inferences that we make from network research and their validity. Even if the requirement for network validity mentioned above have been adhered to, it is important to consider how the final conclusions are drawn, what inferences are made, and how the findings are positioned within the literature. We refer to this as integration validity and inferential consistency, again borrowed from the mixed methods literature. Integration validity refers to the extent to which the researcher has achieved meta-inferences, combining the findings from all parts of the study. This is relevant when studies include findings for ties, for actors, for networks. It also becomes relevant when multiple strands of research were used in one study, for example, one formal and one interpretative strand, or when multiple units of analysis occur. To what extent have these findings been integrated? Inferential consistency means whether the inferences in a study are consistent given what is known from prior understandings, past research, and theory. That was a quote from Dellinger and Leach 2007. That inferential consistency is hard to achieve in social network studies and can be illustrated from Crossley and Edwards' 2016 notion that social network analytics studies mostly report on individual cases only, with low inferential consistency across them. This aspect of network validity is important for the generalizability of network studies, which has sometimes been called into question. So that was our three-part framework of network validity. That included a discussion of the specification of a network, the data representing the network, and the inferences made from the network study. We really do not want to move this further at this point, but we are looking forward to your comments and your questions.